Good morning. Welcome to a conversation with myself, Lee Houghton, or between myself, Lee Houghton, and Harvey Leach about. Well, we'll talk to people about what it's about in a second. But first, as I said, I have been joined by a very special guest, Harvey. How the devil are you, sir?
I'm very well, thank you, Lee. How are you? Well, thank you.
Oh, hey up!
Well, thank you.
Have I lost you already,
Hello.
Harvey? Have I lost
I
you
don't
already?
know, Lee. It was fine when we did the trial, wasn't it? So I don't know. Can you not hear
It
me?
was. It
I
was.
can see you.
I can see and hear you again. I can see and hear you again. So all good, all good. So for those people
I
who
think
don't
this
know who
is
Harvey
really
is,
I think it's connecting to everything.
oh well, now then, let's have a see what's going on here. So for those people who don't know who Harvey is, who is Harvey? Oh, he's gone. He's gone. Strong start so far. It was all okay when we first started. So this is a conversation between myself and myself currently, but Harvey will join us in a second, and we are going to be talking about the strategy gap when we are supporting organisations, and we do it in our own way. We have often seen a similar challenge. And it is this strategy gap that people don't talk about. And they don't talk about it for a whole host of different reasons. And we will explore those reasons very, very shortly. Myself and Harvey have been connected on LinkedIn for a good number of years now. We've engaged in each other's posts for quite a while, but we've never actually engaged in a conversation up until the other week, where when we were talking, we agreed that actually a lot of the stuff that we were chatting about would be of benefit to do in a live conversation. And so that is what we're here to do today. We're here to talk today, to talk about this, the strategy gap. Harvey, welcome back. How are you?
I'm back. I'm good. I'm all right. All right. Can you hear me now?
So yeah, you're just coming back to us now. Yeah, you're just coming back to us. So for those people who don't know who Harvey is, who is Harvey?
So I am an engineer by training. So I'm training. Worked in the car industry for 27 years, and then started my own consultancy practice back in 2004. I was share what I learned in that and encourage with the whole I just study with other organisations, and I've had lots of fun doing that for the last 27 years. And really increasing by the people side. Being an engineer, started with a very technical position, but the more I've done, the more it's how technical and the people side working is to get together, is to really building successful people with stabilities in the long haul.
Gotcha. Love that. Look, so Harvey, I was just saying before you rejoined that we'd never spoken properly up until a couple of weeks ago, but we'd engaged in each other's content a little bit. However, when we spoke, we chatted about this topic that we're going to talk about today, and we said that a lot of the stuff that we were saying would be of real value to do it in a live environment. So that's why we're here today. The strategy gap for you between in fact, before I lead with an assumption, the strategy gap for you, Harvey, where does it exist?
What I've noticed, both when I've been doing consulting work and training, because I added a sort of training strand to my business, and I'm called in to sort of provide sort of technical process type training, if you like, continuous improvement, lean topics, both in the manufacturing space and the product development space. And I was just seeing a disconnect. between that comment and what's the disconnect in that comment, what's the HR function doing around people we are doing, say the around people development, people skills, and so go on. So you've got somebody maybe in the quality department or the continuous improvement department, around people department who are teaching people what I call technical skills of process improvement, sort of technical skills of process improvement, you know, problem solving, mainstream mapping, process leadership, all that sort of stuff. And then you've got the HRD department who were teaching negotiation and they've got the HRD negotiation, various other things, management skills, they're all connected. So people teaching, so we're learning the technical skills with recognizing that there's actually a really strong people element to getting the right engagement, the right mindset for applying those tools and so on. And the HR functions was providing all this people skills training, people skills training, but people with us were learning it out of context. So yeah, this is all very interesting, but how does that relate to my database today, John, and some of the other stuff we're trying to do? How do I apply it? And let me work. I'm thinking, surely there's a better way of getting these things connected together.
Harvey, we're getting a number of messages that are saying that Harvey's connection is very poor. Harvey's sound is not very good. Can we try and fix Harvey's sound? Would you be able to just dial off and dial back in again? Would that be okay?
I will do that. Certainly. Certainly.
Perfect. Oh, there we go. There we go. So fingers crossed. Hopefully, when Harvey returns, we will be able to see and hear him in full flow. From my perspective, the strategy gap is between the HR and people function and the operations directorate as well. Nobody goes to work to purposefully do a bad job. And when we create the strategies, maybe the people strategy is focused on engagement, and maybe the operations strategy is focused on efficiency. And then both of those strategies are then developed within their own silo and they work down. But then there's always a gap that exists. And what we need to do is we need to try to connect that gap, because fundamentally, we believe that engagement drives efficiency, effectiveness. It drives everything. Oh, Harvey, are you there?
I'm here.
Oh, you just speak to me again. Just say a few words.
Hello. I'm here. I'm here.
So I can hear you a little bit better. So hopefully everybody else can hear you a little bit better as well. Your picture is still a little bit pixelated, but your sound is coming through a lot clearer than it was.
Right. Would it help if maybe I switch my camera off and just get the sound? Should we try that, or is it all right?
No, you're fully back. You're fully back. We can see you beautifully again. No, this is good. This is good. Whatever you've just done, whatever you've just fed your laptop, it has absolutely worked.
I've done nothing, but I'm glad it's better.
Yeah. So the strategy gap for you, Harvey, where is it and why does it exist? So if you just give us a flavour of what you were saying just before.
So what I said before, really, I'll do it much quicker, was that I saw, say, quality or continuous improvement departments teaching technical skills, problem solving, Kaizen, value stream mapping, all of that stuff, or project teams looking about process for new product development, design reviews, that stuff. And then on the other side, HR departments teaching people skills without context, and the technical stuff, people going, well, yeah, we've learned the technical stuff, but people don't want to do it, or they were not getting the engagement right, or the conversations aren't right, and not really knowing how to bring their people skills into that context. And I just thought there's got to be a better way of joining those things together. Yeah.
Absolutely. And I guess when you've tried, because so we resonate and we recognise exactly the same issue. What do you think causes that situation?
I think the cause is really hard. I think possibly that if I put it at its simplest, say the L&D teams maybe aren't getting close enough to their internal customer and really understanding the world they're living in and what it is they need from the people who are trying to do the collaborative working or the process improvement. What is it that group really needs? Because I had an example talking to a colleague a few weeks ago. He'd gone into a new role in a new company, in the product development space, and he was saying we're just not getting the right conversations between the different departments. And so he went to HR and said, look, could you put on some training for the various leaders and key people in these departments on how to work better collaboratively? And they went to a well-renowned business school, and they put a brilliant program together, and they delivered this training to goodness knows how many tens of engineers and project managers and so. And yet it didn't actually fix the collaboration problem, because the people designing the training hadn't really understood the situation that it was needing to be applied to. And so it's almost like there's a collaboration problem about trying to sort out the collaboration problem, because the people designing the interventions from a people skills point of view aren't understanding the process world.
Yeah. Do you think though that it starts at that level, or do you think it manifests itself at a higher level? And the reason why I say that is because, and we've coined this about strategies, and strategies are developed, agreed at board level, and the HR
Sure.
people function will have maybe the engagement metric to try to tackle, and then the operations directorate will have maybe the efficiency and the cost metrics to try, and then
Sure.
they'll set their people upon this. And so from your perspective, when you're saying about maybe the collaboration is not there, do you think the collaboration would be there if they started collaborating higher first, or is it just a symptom of the
Absolutely.
situation?
I think you're probably right. I think if we dig deeper into causes, what we see at that working level is perhaps reflecting something that's happening at senior level. Because the other thing I notice sometimes is that you have different functions have different goals that actually pull each other in one direction or another. Maybe they're pulling in different directions, and therefore everybody's trying to deliver what they think the business wants of them. And that can start at sea level, can't it? That
Yep.
the HR function's got its goals, like the procurement function might have goals on, well, let's find cheaper prices for parts. Engineering have got goals on getting projects complete on time, and then manufacturing are trying to do their job, and the goals are misaligned, and maybe therefore there is a misalignment between what's happening in operations and what they're trying to do and what HR's targets are, and they have maybe that collaboration and conversation and understanding isn't even happening at the C-suite level, perhaps.
Yeah, I mean, and that's maybe one cause, because that's what I see and I hear, and I often talk about that silos are always seen and felt in organisations, but they often start right at the top, because we are paying people have got a directorate, and that's how we are set up, and so that then they'll have their own individual goals and their own individual metrics, and then they will set about improving those things, which makes it very, I guess, silo driven and insular in the different directorates. So when you talk a lot about collaboration, and I guess if we just pick up on your first example, or your first answer, when you're talking about collaboration, how would you encourage people to collaborate more at the working level?
I think firstly, it's about, it's as simple as recognizing that actually everybody's on the same side. I think that the way that thing about conflicting goals and targets manifests itself at working level is everybody comes into a project or into an improvement activity or whatever with their own personal agenda or their functional agenda. Yeah. And
Yeah.
a lot of the time it can seem that those things are in tension. So they want different things out of that interaction. They've got their own local goals, their own local targets, things that matter to them. And so they're having a conversation from that position. And it's almost like, well, yeah, so we need this out of this conversation, but the engineering guys need that, and the purchasing people need that, and the manufacturing people need that. And it's like there's a competition going on as to who gets their own way, rather than, well, hang on a minute, surely there is a common objective here from an organizational point of view that we should all be trying to work towards. And if we can get everybody to recognize what that common objective is and go, right, so what are we all contributing to that? What is it that we need to be able to do to deliver that objective? And how can we help each other do our own bit? And if I think back into my car industry days, if I go back 20 something years, there were a lot of functionally driven targets in BMW Group where I was when it came to new projects. And we were just at the start of saying, well, actually, we can only deliver those targets if other functions do such and such. We can only deliver targets for product cost or quality or whatever if the manufacturing guys do this, if the purchasing guys do this, if the engineering guys do this. So let's start having those conversations about how can we support one another to do stuff, rather than just how do we deliver our bit, and we don't care about how difficult or easy, how difficult that might make your bit.
Yeah. Yeah. The common goal.
I think
How?
go on.
Sorry, yeah, sorry, Harvey. Just a quick question around the common goal that you spoke about a few times. How easy is it to have a common goal? Um, yeah, in fact, I'll just leave that question there. Yeah, how easy is it to have a common goal?
Ooh, never thought about it that way. I think it's as easy or as hard as we choose to make it at one level, because it's about what do we decide is important and what determines what's important. So, if we're saying, well, we all have a commitment in the organization to build the best car we can build that will be the most profitable for the organization or whatever, to take my industry as an example. If everybody accepts that idea and says, what are the things that we do that either help that or get in the way, and we're prepared to work towards that, it's as easy as anything. If everybody's being pulled in different directions by their boss, all the way up to the CEO, and you're going, well, I need you to focus on this and I need you to focus on this, and those things are actually pulling in opposite directions, then it's incredibly difficult to buy into a common goal, because actually the person who determines my what my bonus looks like or what my career development looks like or everything else is pulling me in a conflicting direction, which goes back to your point about it all has to float up to the top of the organization. So all of those things that are coming from leadership about what determines people's reaction to challenges they're set, then I guess becomes the determining factor as to how easy or difficult that is at the working level.
Yeah. No, absolutely,
I don't know what
absolutely.
you
Because
think. That's my view.
yeah, no. So I am with you. I am with you. When we talk about a common goal, like improving engagement cannot be a common goal. Efficiency, I mean, it can be a common goal, but it shouldn't be a common goal, because it has to be. How can we have more highly engaged people doing X? What's our purpose?
Yeah.
Why do we exist? And I think that's often the gap that is not bridged will go, right, HR director and function, you go and improve our engagement scores from the annual engagement survey. Operations director, you go and fix
Yeah.
efficiency, effectiveness and cost. But it's not in line with our purpose and why we exist as an organisation. And I think that's the gap.
Oh, yes. Now we're getting to something interesting, aren't we? Because I think in the end, what you've just highlighted is the difference between where HR are trying to go sometimes and where everybody else is trying to go, because everybody else's goals are about money or technical targets or performance or anything else, and perhaps don't have as much about the people thing in them. Is that what you're suggesting? I think an
So
HR is saying, well, we want to create this not, I'm going to say nice organization that cares about its people, and somehow that stuff doesn't appear on the other functions radar, whether they're engineering or operations or supply chain or wherever. It's not on their radar enough.
yeah,
And you go, but then I go on. I was going to say, if I go back to my experiences when I went to Japan, the whole people thing is front and center of everybody's agenda.
yeah,
And I think that's
absolutely get
very
that.
different from what we see in a lot of British companies.
No, it is. We are very, I guess, target driven, and acknowledge we often use a best model, which I speak about in my book as well, and traditionally organisations start at the T level, the target level, and that is
Yeah,
whatever the metric is, the operational metric, and that's how consultants have worked for a vast number of years. And then, like 15 years ago, customer satisfaction became a thing, customer engagement became a thing, because people had connected the dots between satisfied customers and achievement of business targets. Then 10 years ago,
yeah,
engagement and well-being became more focused because people had connected the dots between engagement, satisfaction, and business targets. And but what not enough organisations have created a real strong connection between engagement and satisfaction and achievement of business targets, because the business targets you can see here, you can see here and feel right now because a metric or a dial will move. But if you make somebody happier today, that might manifest itself in a business target like in a little bit of time later. And so we're not very good, and I'm talking generically here, I don't believe we're very good at connecting the dots between happy people and business success. And
for sure.
and I think that's part of the challenge.
But I wonder if just thinking about that for a minute though, is that because we're treating things like employee engagement, employee happiness as an activity in itself that HR see, rather than going, how do we just change the way we manage and lead people doing their day-to-day work in a way that will make them more fulfilled and happy? And by the way, they will get more involved in making the work better. If we think
Yes.
about continuous improvement at its essence is, it's not about Six Sigma projects, green belt projects, yellow belt projects, as much as it is about everybody every day really getting involved in making stuff better. And I think if we can give people more autonomy, more opportunity in their day-to-day work, then surely that is going to make people happier anyway, because if you look at all the reasons that make people unhappy, they're being told what to do, they're not getting the chance to contribute, nobody listens to me. It's a lot of that stuff. Whereas again, going back to my Japan experience, the MD, the CEO, is down walking the shop floor every day. He's stopping talking to the people, not going, not to tell them off or not to check up on them or anything else, but just to say, how's it going? Maybe a very caring challenge, or how can I help? What's getting in your way? What's stopping you doing good work? What's stopping you enjoying being here? What's, and the dynamic is incredibly different. I mean, I remember another friend of mine tells this story, that because he'd had a lot of experience working with the Japanese and he got put in an ops director role, and he started practicing this thing going down on the shop floor, and by about the Thursday of the first week, one of the team leaders sort of stopped him and he said, hey, what's wrong? And Simon looks at him and goes, what do you mean what's wrong? And he said, well, we've seen you on the shop floor more in your first week here than we saw of the old boss in 6 months. What's going on? Why are you here? What are you bothered about? What's going wrong? And Simon's going, well, nothing's going wrong. I just want to understand what life's like for you and how we can make it better. And it just blew these guys' minds that was the way he was managing.
Yeah. The what we're talking about here, it sounds like, I guess, to organisations that it will take a long period of time to change from this environment, from where we are to what we're talking about. It might feel like it's a big ask and a big task to move from this. Because if we're asking people to cross their fingers and just go happiness equals results, at its simplest form, that might take a long time to do. But will it take a long time? Is it such a big effort and a challenge? And then after you've answered that one, Harvey, I'm going to go to the comments because we've got some questions.
Yeah, sure. So I mean, I don't think it does, because if you give people the right opportunity, I'm trying to think of an example for myself, but the thing that comes to mind, you and I both know Katie Anderson, who spent time in Japan, talked to a lot of Japanese leaders, and in particular talked to a guy called Isao Yoshino, who was the guy who helped develop the workforce for Toyota's first venture in America. And if anybody's interested in this, look up Katie Anderson's Chain of Learning podcast, the last but one episode. And in that conversation and in Katie's book, Yoshino talks about them bringing the team leaders from this very former unionized General Motors factory in the States, very much like British car factories would have been back in the 1980s, very confrontational between management and shop floor. And they dropped these team leaders into a Toyota factory in Japan, working alongside their Japanese counterparts for 2 weeks. And these guys saw a very different way of working. They experienced it, they lived it. It wasn't lectured, it wasn't book theory. They didn't do lots of teaching. They just dropped them next to these Japanese guys. They couldn't even speak the same language. Yeah, the American guys didn't speak Japanese. Most of the Japanese didn't speak any English, but they experienced the different dynamic between manager and worker. And that 2 weeks just shifted the mindset of these guys from confrontation to collaboration, because they'd seen it and they'd experienced it. So that didn't take a long time. That took did they get to the end point where they could all start really behaving differently? No, but they'd flipped a switch, and suddenly they wanted to do it differently because they'd seen something different. So whenever I run workshops or anything with clients, what I try and do is create an experience for them that helps them see that a different way can be possible, by examples, by experiences of doing stuff in a different way.
Yeah, no, absolutely. You speak a lot of stuff that I absolutely resonate with. When we start workshops, what the opening quote is always, you have to think and do different to achieve different. And then I always say, my job here is to help you think differently, but think differently enough that you will feel motivated to do different. And often we are not in our environments with our people to help them think differently enough, to create different thoughts, because we'll just ask them the same question every single day, or we'll not probe and we'll not involve them enough. And because we're just creatures of habit, we'll just like, it's like the simplest example is on a Monday, we will we'll just ask people, do you have a good weekend? And it'll just be a yes or no. We're not actually genuinely interested in whether they've had a good weekend or not. If we were, we would then ask a follow-up question. We would explore the weekend. We would show genuine interest. And that interest is, we don't create or demonstrate or demonstrate enough interest in people's work, in people's role, in people's daily contribution. And if we did, then they would feel more engaged. And like you say, it just starts really small. Maybe it's just a new question that we ask repeatedly, or maybe it's just being a little bit different. We want to create an environment of curiosity, and I think that's key.
Yeah.
Anything else from yourself on this, Harvey, before I go to the comments that we've had?
No, go for the questions. I mean, we could keep this conversation going on all day probably, but let's see what questions have come in.
Yeah. So Stephen Murphy has said. So I think you've got quite a fan base, Harvey, haven't you? Stephen Murphy has said it is clear. Yeah, is it clear what the business needs, the customer needs, and this I have found is key. So understanding what the business needs, what the customer needs, and that's what Stephen's saying is key. I often so 5 whys is often used as a problem-solving tool, but I try to flip that when I'm working with people, and I'll go, what's the why for the business? What's the why for the exec team? What's the why for the HR function? What's the why for the operators? What's the why for the change team? And then if you can understand whatever the reason why everybody is doing whatever the activity is, then we can start to then understand the linkages and the collaboration between. Marjorie has said, I wonder if the most tricky bit of the common goal is how to keep sight of it and deal with it when there is a deviation so that individuals can learn rather than be punished. Oh, have you put your sound on, Harvey, on LinkedIn?
No, I did. I just thought I'm not seeing all these questions, and I sort of went to my phone on LinkedIn and forgotten the sound was still turned on. So that's bad news. Don't you? I fixed it now. So I think Marjorie's spot on in that, and I think there's so much about the whole goal setting piece, because I think if we do it well, everybody's local goals should all be lined up to that organizational goal anyway. They shouldn't be in tension. So if everybody's got, from an organizational goal to a functional goal to a team goal to an individual contribution, if we've done the work to see how those all line up, then it should be easier to keep sight of that big goal. Because even if people lose sight of that, as long as they know what their goal is and they're working towards it, they're not going to be too far away, because they're not being pulled in a different direction by their local goal.
Yeah. It's like, for me, it's the difference between like having a steering wheel and gripping it tightly or just and loosely. Like the deviations will exist, but we still need to be directional. We still need to understand what's caused us to go a little bit off, or what's caused us to go a little bit that way. But not chastise. It's got to be from a point of curiosity, and we need to understand.
Exactly.
I was doing a piece of work last week and the week before. I had my content was all about watermelon reporting, because that was what I was seeing in the organisation that I was supporting, and what I mean by watermelon reporting is that when everybody turns up to any meeting, everything's all green, but you scratch the surface just a little bit and it's red underneath, just like a
It's red.
watermelon. And
Yes.
we see that a lot because the environment's not safe. Because they don't want to share the deviations, they don't want to call out problems, challenges, failures, and stuff like that. So I think that comes down to the environment. Anything else from yourself on that bit, Harvey?
No, I mean, I think there's a real point there, isn't it? Is, you know, it's about what's the response when we drift away. You know, is it beat people up for moving away from the target, or is it let's understand what was causing that, assume everybody's trying to do it right, and therefore if it's not going right, something's missing, and what is it that's missing that we need to put in place that will keep people going in the right direction. So it's like, you know, one of the phrases I use an awful lot is failure is inevitable, or even failure is desirable. And it's how we then treat that failure. You know, if we see it as a failure, if we see it as somebody's done something wrong, then people aren't going to be honest, which is why you get the whole watermelon thing.
Yeah.
You know, whereas if we say, look, failure is inevitable because we're trying to do new stuff, and if we're trying to do new stuff, we're not going to get it right every time. It's an experiment, it's a trial. You know, and we need to do the whole plan, do, check, act thing. It's the plan and do, and then we do the check bit. And the check bit is the thing people miss out. It's like, well, did that go the way we wanted it to? Yeah, maybe a bit. Okay, so if the bit that work's good, let's keep doing that. And what about the bits that didn't work? Well, maybe we need to just tweak it a bit and have another go and see if that makes it better. And it's that pause for reflection, and as you say, curiosity rather than criticism, blame, or whatever else we might be used to. You know, and I noticed Marjorie put a question in that said, how do you get curiosity? And I think it's by being curious yourself, modeling the reaction we want from people. You know, so if you turn up as a coach or a leader or whatever, and you go, this is interesting, let's understand what happened there and how we can make it better, rather than whose fault was it went wrong. We changed the dynamic.
Yes, absolutely, absolutely. I mean, Madge put what is the watermelon? The watermelon is any metric that is or any result or anything that anybody will turn up to a meeting and show everything's okay. But actually, if you scratch the surface, it's not okay. Typically, that's demonstrated through graphs, through charts, through red, green statuses on different things. It's through a failure of not being an open environment. There's a question that I want to share with you here, Harvey, as well. It's from Stephen Murphy. He said, and I'd like your reaction to this: HR have to help to develop people to stay employed, not feel good day in and day out. Often hard yards need to be walked. What do you think?
No, I think at one level, Stephen's spot on, but it makes their job tougher, because absolutely, what are we trying to do here is make people more valuable to the organization, but also make the organization more valuable to the people,
Yeah.
so that people want to stay around. Yeah, you know, because I think if HR see their thing as, well, we want to make this a wonderful company to work for, but that is only serving the employees. It's not actually then saying, how does that mean the employees make a stronger contribution to the organization? Then HR have kind of got their goals wrong, haven't they? Their goals aren't actually then lined up to what does the organization need. Whereas if we have a mindset that says, well, the organization will get what it needs best if we equip and enable the people to do their best work. Yeah. So
Yep.
then HR's job is to say, how do we then support leaders to get the best out of their people? And how do we equip the people to give their best? And then the goals and the strategies start to line up a bit more.
Yes.
Going back to our original topic, bringing it back there. That's about goal alignment again, isn't it?
Absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. And just and
Marjorie
I
has
guess
this lovely saying about not being nice, because nice is about avoiding some of those difficult conversations. And actually, what's
yeah,
best for the people and the organization is to create an environment where, everybody feels like the organization cares about them, but also are willing to be challenged to do better, to where they need some feedback that will help them make a better contribution, that we're not afraid to give it to them, which I think
yes,
is what
yeah.
kind of seemed like what Stephen was getting at with his question.
You've absolutely got to be loyal. And sometimes being loyal doesn't necessarily equate to being nice. I guess my just build on Stephen's point as well is that HR are in a role to develop their people to enable them to have a meaningful contribution to the best of their capabilities and abilities. I would love it to be a leader's function to help and understand what their people need to feel good day in, day out. Some days are going to be harder than others. But I think as leaders, we need to understand um, how our people are feeling. So I think it's not necessarily HR's role to make people feel good day in, day out. I think it's a leader's role to understand our people well enough to understand whether they are having a good day or not. And then, Harvey, I just want to go to Charles Whitaker's point here. He says, I think we are mistaken in trying to transfer Japanese mindset into UK context. The cultures just do not match. And I guess I don't believe that's what we're talking about on this call here. I think the reference that you made to the Japanese context was what your experience, what you saw, heard, and felt out there. What I believe that we are talking about here is creating high-performing teams, so highly engaged people, and I don't think that's not Japanese, that's not Western, it's human. And we want humans to work well together in delivering a meaningful contribution towards the purpose of that business. And I think
Yeah.
that's what aspirationally all organizations should be striving to do wherever they are in the world. What do you think, Harvey?
No, I mean, I agree. And I think you're spot on. I wasn't suggesting we can copy what Japan does, because Charles is spot on. In that our underpinning culture is very different.
Yeah.
And the question to me is then, how can we take the inspiration that we see, not just from Japanese companies, but from high performing European, American, wherever organizations? Because I think, if you look at all the stuff I've read over the years of people in the US, in Europe, whatever, who've looked at high performing organizations, they all have a much stronger people orientation. But they'll have done it in a way that's right for their locality. What works in the UK won't work in France,
Yeah.
won't work in Germany, won't work in the US, because the underpinning culture is different. But equally, to get the result that we want, we probably have to challenge some different cultural norms that are unhelpful. In Japan,
Yes.
some of the cultural norms that Toyota found were unhelpful were about deference to leaders. Nobody would challenge the boss and all of that sort of stuff.
Yeah.
Because it's not as if Japanese culture inherently made this work. Toyota had to challenge Japanese culture. And then when he went to the US, they probably had to challenge bits of American culture. When they came to the UK, they would have had to challenge bits of UK culture, you know, and because I think UK culture sometimes is very individualistic, very me-centered, very much expects the organisation to do it all for them. Whereas actually what we're saying here is maybe one of the things we need to challenge is drawing more out of people to own their own individual contribution, maybe the cultural thing that we're trying to work with here.
Yeah, I mean, I think whether we segment by country, whether we segment, we could cut it in all sorts of different ways. Here, we are talking about humans connecting together, collaborating and
Yes.
making meaningful contribution. And whatever group of humans we are blessed to have in front of us, then we need to understand and connect with them on a human level to be able to then get them to work together. As you know, in my book, the key, I guess, framework is the 4 C's, and that for me was a revelation when I thought about this a good number of years ago now, is because this is just about human relationships, and in organisations we try to get them to, which is with the third C first, we try to get them to collaborate first, but the 4 C's work in connect, converse, collaborate, then celebrate and reflect. And I think if we can truly connect with the people that are in front of us, understand who they are, understand what motivates them, understand their role in delivering a meaningful contribution, and then we can talk or converse with them in a meaningful way, listening to them, giving them a voice, then they are better enabled to collaborate with other people. We've spent the time doing that, and then we can celebrate and reflect. And I think this is about getting humans to work together, irrelevant of the people that we have in front of us. We just got to, as leaders, we've just got to take time to do that. And when we start with a HR strategy, an operations strategy, we're expecting people to collaborate right from the off. We need to connect first, and I think that's one of the main things to close the gap. So I got my little soapbox then. I do apologise, Harvey.
No, not at all. I mean, I've got on mine a bit today, so why shouldn't you have a go? And I think, you know, the way you talk about it in the book, I think is really helpful. That 4C structure, I think, is really useful.
Good. No, good.
So,
Good. Thank you.
you know, it's
Stephen's.
absolutely about that human to human interaction.
Yes, it is. We've got a few more comments. I'm just conscious
But
of
it's
time. I've got a few
oh
more
yeah,
comments
we want
I
to
want to get
work
through.
towards winding up.
So, Harvey, there is a comment that let me go to the top here. So, Stephen has just commented, and he said, "Leaders and HR do not understand that business is war. While we may not actually be involved in direct hand-to-hand combat, the failure of business means less taxes paid, means a health service and education, however funded, will slowly but surely fail. Communicating this has to be done delicately, but it's where we are." I think that's an interesting framing. That is, it suggests that we can't all be winners, and maybe we can't, but who knows? What are your thoughts on that one, Harvey? Before I go to another point.
I mean, I don't like the idea that it's war because it, as you say, it feels like if it's a war, somebody has to win and somebody has to lose. And that's never a satisfactory long-term position. And you go, wars don't end because some, you know, what do I want to say? In the end, wars come to an end because people have a conversation about stopping fighting most of the time.
Yeah.
You know, however you get there, and some of the ways we get there are quite unpleasant sometimes, but in the end it comes back to people have to decide that they're going to talk to each other rather than keep fighting.
Yeah. Yeah.
And
So
therefore, I think the win is when we start to have better conversations.
absolutely, absolutely, and I think the language that's used in the is obviously very emotive language and stuff. But like when we talk about problems, failure, challenge, and conflict, I think in the right environment those are positive words. In the wrong environment, they are
Mm-hmm.
negative, challenging, and maybe um, negative words. But if we think back to what we started with about having a group of individuals pointing in the same direction towards a common goal, working together, collaborating, then to find problems, to have conflict, to be open to challenge is all of the things that we need to get there. Conflict is just two people with a different point of view. And so I'd like to
Absolutely.
think that actually, if we, dependent upon which level we live at, then maybe there is a way that we can all be winners. Another couple of points here. So Sabine has said you've highlighted something that's genuinely overlooked in many organisations. It's fascinating how this disconnect between people and operations creates the ripple effect that touches everything. Yet leaders often miss it entirely. The enablement piece you mentioned feels especially critical since that's where the competing priorities really start to clash and create confusion throughout the organisation. Thoughts?
Too right.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah,
No,
absolutely. And then I think there was just one more that I wanted to just. So Penny Downs said, servant leadership makes such a difference in organisations. You can still deliver, but takes a whole leadership team to embrace for it then to become a culture. And I think that is really a real important point that we spoke right at the start. It's at the top level, and if we don't get it right up here, then we create silos here, and then it makes the collaboration work a lot more difficult to create. What we've got to recognise though is that what has made people successful to get here can be in some instances ego and results that have been delivered. But what we have to do is work together to recognize that actually this group of people here can still be a team. They can still be a team who work together to achieve the common purpose of the thing. Often they think actually this is me and my team. This is me and my team. And I think that for me is where the strategy gap is often starts. But I think by having better conversations, by collaborating at that level, we can absolutely bridge that gap. What do you think, Harvey? Any closing points, thoughts that you want to touch on?
no, I think you've summed it up beautifully. Because I think it absolutely comes down to what is happening at the top of the organisation to make sure all the strategies that are happening functionally are encouraging those cross-functional conversations at all the levels below. And it can only happen if the cross-functional conversations are happening between the heads of all those functions.
Yeah, perfect. Perfect. Harvey, I just want to say thank you so much for the last 50 odd minutes. It's been an absolute delight. Apologies for the few technical challenges at the early days in terms of the sound and the the sound and the picture. Hopefully people have managed to, and it sounds like with the comments and stuff, they've been managed to follow along with that. If you're open to it, Harvey, we can continue this conversation at a later date and pick another topic, and if you like.
Absolutely, I've loved it, and looking at the comments, it sounds like people have got it's resonated with people. Nice to see some familiar faces on there or names on there, and some new people that I've not connected with before. So please, anybody who's out there who's enjoyed this morning, connect with Lee if you haven't connected with Lee before. I'll do the plug for his book, which I've just finished. And he talks a lot about the people. I've absolutely loved it. Everything that's in there I've resonated with. So for those people who haven't read Lee's book, do get yourself a copy. It's lovely. Connect with me on LinkedIn if we've not met before, and let's have a chat. And I look forward to doing
Perfect.
this again for sure.
Yeah, no, we'll absolutely sort that. Paul Dunlop on YouTube has actually asked us a question as well. He said, I know you'll get to it, but I'm interested in your thoughts on deployment of the strategy. So I think we spoke about that at a touch. It's got to be aligned up here. Anything that you want to just say to that before we say goodbye?
I think the problem is to do it justice probably needs more than the 4 minutes before thing. And I'm conscious people probably want to go for a comfort break and grab a coffee before their 11 o'clock meeting. So maybe we pick that one up when we have our next conversation. But I think if people want to go and look at something, look at Houghton planning, Houghton cannery as a way of getting that alignment. There's some good tools and methods there for encouraging the right sort of conversations to happen.
Amazing. Harvey, it's been an absolute pleasure, sir. You have a lovely weekend. Thanks to everybody that has joined us today. And look forward to having another conversation very, very soon, sir.